how's it going? It's Keith Townsend from the CTOadvisor.com. And we're still in beautiful Las Vegas. It's only, Milin, I think it's 115 now. Actually, I don't think it's that hot. Honestly, it's only about 104. But it's dry heat, so there's that. I'm with Milin Desai. You're already a CTO Advisor veteran. You've been on the CTO Advisor before. We talked about cloud services over on the VMware campuses. We're at VMworld 2018. And I'm glad that your BU has been the quietest BU of the conference before. So far. So I joke. We both work for VMware now. We're on the same side of the table. So I'm going to try and keep my honesty analyst hat on and not get too excited about some of the announcements. I'm going to open up with a challenging question. This is the CTO Advisor. We like to challenge each other still. I've been in the field. I've talked to customers, and one question that I get consistently is, we're cloud first, and since we're cloud first, why should we even have a conversation with VMware?
I think that's a fair question, coming from a customer who may not know all the facets of what we've been doing. And as you correctly pointed out, we have had a quiet VMworld, saying jokingly. But now if you look at, first let's clarify what cloud first means. We mean cloud first as in really adopting native cloud in its truest form, right? Native AWS, Azure, and GCP, and in the future other ones. So there is kind of an interesting thing that happened at this VMworld, which is the acquisition of Cloud Health.
Right.
And that changes the dynamics of the conversation we can have with these customers now. So Cloud Health is a platform that was built for born in the cloud operators.
So not necessarily, there's no heritage VMware foundation of Cloud Health. This is AWS, Google Compute, Azure, people who are building cloud native, quote unquote, applications.
Absolutely. And that's where they were born. They've been doing this now for a while. They are the largest, they're the leader in public cloud management, with under $5 billion in cloud spend that is managed by them. They have 3,700 customers. You see some names like Yelp, Pinterest, who are using it, born in the cloud, cloud first.
So I got to push back because, I'm Keith. I'm still Keith. I'm working with VMware. I'm still got to push back. There's this concept. You go to the cloud, whether you're small shop, large shop, there is no management of the cloud. Like I can go to the AWS portal, and AWS has hundreds of services, over 1,000 services. Why do I need a cloud management company to help me manage something that on the surface gives me everything that I need?
Great question, right? So if you think about, if I'm a line of business operator, I start using the public cloud. Very quickly, you start dealing with tens of thousands of objects, right? You're using multiple cloud services, VMs, containers, using message queues. That complexity starts to grow.
Right.
Now, you do this across 5 projects, 10 projects, 100 projects, and then across that are 1,000 users. And so you can see the complexity just starts scaling. And what you start seeing, which is really interesting, is around things like resource efficiency. Let me kind of give you an example. If you leave it to a line of business, they will continue to deploy and spend and grow their business. They're not worried about shutting down stuff or optimizing it because they're focused on speed. It's like a race car driver. All I care about is being number one, being ahead of my competition, right? The cloud operations platform that VMware is talking about is your crew chief and pit crew. We are essentially coming and saying, hey, you may have not configured your RDS right, or your Azure SQL database configuration could be optimized better for cost, for efficiency, right? So that's kind of crew chief coming and giving recommendations on making the race car driver better. And then a pit crew by literally saving costs, right? I can take a customer who's using on-demand instances and move them to reserved instances and save them millions of dollars, right? So that's where this kind of combination of the line of business innovating using native services,
Mm-hmm.
and this aspect of cloud management starts coming into play. Thousands of objects across multiple projects and users, and then multiply that by the number of clouds, this becomes an interesting data problem. And that's really what Cloud Health has done. They collect data, they instrument it to then deliver outcomes, whether it's around cost, visibility, resource management, compliance, and that's really why they've been successful in the market.
So, just to reinforce that idea, some of the conversations I've had out in the community
Mm-hmm.
is that people are, they're fascinated about this concept of serverless
Mm-hmm.
and the ability to build applications using either event-driven or no-code type of applications. And one of the comments, interesting comment I saw from Kelsey Hightower from
Mm-hmm.
Google, he said, you know what, I've been messing around with serverless apps, and the bigger the application I build, the more it feels like application.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have to still manage this thing. I may not have to manage the underlying infrastructure, but the application itself has all these complexities. And it sounds like Cloud Health helps to manage those complexities that natively come with anything, simplicity breaks when it scales. Like you want to break simplicity, just scale it. And you'll find out where your product or service is complex. And I think Cloud Health helps with that. So I want to talk about two more topics.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to try and get these in. The first is VKE versus PKS.
Mm-hmm.
I get PKS. We talked about it with Paul Fazone and yourself the last time I was on a VMware campus. Kubernetes distribution on top of vSphere.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know what? I get it. VKE, another Kubernetes distribution. Like, what's the point?
Yeah. So PKS is for someone who wants to build and operate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So folks who want to build and operate the Kubernetes stack on top of their infrastructure and deliver it themselves.
Right.
And so that you can do it on vSphere. It works on GCP.
Right.
With AWS and Azure coming shortly. So you are building and operating it yourself. The premise of VKE was different. If you were to ask me, I would say, why should you care about Kubernetes clusters and worker nodes and all of the intricacies of that? What if I just told you 10 minutes, sub 10 minutes, I can give a Kubernetes cluster to the end user and they're up and running. And it scales up, it scales down, you can access cloud services natively, it just works, right? So one is a service, the other one is you're building and operating. They're both Kubernetes, but that's the main difference. And VKE works in the native public cloud. It's almost like you don't need to worry about the details of Kubernetes. We manage it for you, upgrades, all of that taken care of. Scales up, scales down, you put your policy around access management, control, give it to your developers, and you're off to the races.
All right, so that's all born in the cloud. I can do that without even buying an ELA from VMware for vSphere. None of that had anything to do with vSphere. I can consume VKE independently. Cloud Health, I'll in a future maybe engage VMware and help with the management of my existing cloud native applications. But very few organizations can ever say, okay, we're going to re-platform every application, get out of the data center. We're coming to this realization, whether it's VMware Cloud on AWS or the recent announcement of RDS on vSphere, that I'm going to have these two things that live together that has to be integrated. Let's go around. We'll go back to the video in which we talked about NSXT, and that's great for doing the glue and the underlying connectivity. But something that I did not see coming, and I have to give a head tip to you guys, because I'm giving you guys a hard time about not what I ironically call moving at the speed of the CIO.
Mm-hmm.
We have to push customers, and we have to get customers to the point where they're really thinking about hybrid cloud.
Mm-hmm.
RDS on top of vSphere is a huge announcement. The ability for a developer to go to a AWS console, provision RDS-based database on premises.
Mm-hmm.
So Amazon manages the database, and VMware provides the underlay on-prem.
Mm-hmm.
Fair to say that's the use case?
Yep.
So the first question, I think the why is pretty straightforward. I think a lot of people have questions around. I know we won't have all the answers, but how?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where do I even start with that?
Yeah, so it's like I said, the things are starting to come together.
Right.
It was clear when you look at the hybrid plus native equal to multi. I think we are providing, the simplest way I would say it is, land your application where you want to land it. We will deliver our value to you, right? Whether it's in the native cloud, whether it's in a hybrid cloud, or bringing cloud services on-prem. And RDS is a perfect example. So the question was, how will this all work? The control plane for RDS will be the same control plane which is sitting in AWS today.
Right.
And the destination that will show up will be your on-prem data center. At which point, you will point to that on-prem data center, it's a cluster, a vSphere cluster, and you will have a software module that will have pieces of VMware software as well as AWS.
So that software module is part of the control plane. So that software module is talking to AWS. The AWS say, hey, I'm basically an AWS region, for lack of a better term.
Correct.
You can deploy the RDS database here.
Right. And the software that we are providing enables you to do very interesting things, from snapshot management to offline operations. Making, to your point, the vSphere underlay operate alongside the RDS control and data plane that goes along.
So this wouldn't be the CTO advisor if I didn't go out of bounds and at least ask the question. Why? One, I can think of 100 different services that potentially I could do that with. It could be EC2, a number. Why RDS? Why the database layer? Why start at the database? Because this database is not easy. I'm thinking about just how do I monitor, maintain, performance, all of that. That's like probably one of the hardest layers to start at.
You just said it. It is the hardest problem, and AWS with its RDS offering has solved it very well in the cloud. And so why not take on the hardest problem which gives the most benefit to our customers up front? And so that's the reason we're doing it, because we believe that problem needed a solution, and with AWS coming together with us, we will be able to bring that solution to market. So take the hardest problem, it's solved in the cloud, why not solve it for on-prem?
Wow, so the early peak, what have been the early reactions by customers? We're at VMworld 2018. I know customers, some may be scratching their heads, others are chomping at the bit, maybe some are indifferent. What has been the overall reaction?
Yeah, it's been interesting, this VMworld. I've been like giddy with excitement with all the news. I'm like, I've got RDS on one side, I've got this thing called Cloud Health. We're really starting to make a mark. Pre-announced, we've been having private conversations with customers, and since announced, I can tell you, especially because I have a history at VMware with NSX, a dozen or so customers have already reached out. We've had multiple meetings here. We're getting into the nitty-gritty of what versions of MySQL, and it's just been super interesting. There is a real problem, and I think this is going to be a fun ride.
Yeah, so I look forward to having you on either the podcast or CTO Dose again to talk through like performance monitoring, what type of value-added services, because if we look at the ecosystem of when I go to the AWS marketplace, I have all these cool services I can put on top of RDS. How do those come into play? Security, how does NSX and NSXT play into this? A lot of the things that I challenge you guys about, I'm sure the folks that are back in the lab working through some of this. I'm looking forward to having you on the CTO Advisor to talk to those things again. For people who want to, VMware's website is a big website. People who want to zero in and talk about cloud, learn more about cloud services such as Wavefront, a lot of the things we talked about last episode, where can they find it?
Cloud.vmware.com.
Milin, as usual, it's great having you on. Look
Pleasure
forward
being
to
here.
having you again. That's it for this CTO Dose, brought to you from, I guess I can say it's technically sponsored by VMware because I work for VMware, and even though there was no money exchange other than my paycheck, you got to figure that one out. Until then, we'll talk to you next CTO Dose. Follow us on the web, ctodose.com, me at CTO Advisor on Twitter.